The grand end of the century Great Exhibition of London. Surely there is not a soul who has failed to hear of it. Wondrous new works of culture and industry from every corner of the globe had converged on Hyde Park, welcoming over 50 million visitors. The last great hurrah of this century. Astonished and delighted people of all nations, and ended on a note of resounding success. But as regards to the terrible catastrophe that occurred during the festivities, very few are aware my friend Mr. Herlock Sholmes had a hand in unraveling the matter. For from the shadows, it was he who earnestly unearthed the facts of the case. And like the centerpiece of the great exhibition, which rose high into the skies of Hyde Park, Sholmes's brilliant deductions, as clear and lofty as the Crystal Tower itself, brought the truth to light.
We're here at the showground of the Great Exhibition, which is absolutely packed with people. The weather is unusually fine, and we're about to witness a most extraordinary scientific experiment.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 20th century will see steam engines and electrical power dominate the world. Horse-drawn carts will give way to the motor car. Ships will sprout wings and take to the skies. And today, we showcase even more advanced technology, a glimpse into the future. A world first, a demonstration of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine! A man will literally be disassembled by a pulse of high voltage electricity and beamed to another location. Whereupon his body will be reassembled by a series of complex calculations exactly as it was before. In but a few moments from now, this gentleman will, in the blink of an eye, complete an incredible journey through the air. To arrive an instant later on the Crystal Tower behind you! This one! Yes, yes, yes! Whoa! Yes! Yes, yes, yes! No, please, that's not what I wanted!
I mean, that looked pretty straightforward to me. Some guy was a moron and he killed somebody trying to do moronic things. Like, I think it was last week, I read the Wikipedia page which had a plot summary of The Hound of the Baskervilles. And I also read the first, few paragraphs of it. And I honestly don't remember much a week later. Something to do with a young man inherited a house or a mansion. And they actually had some candidate mansions that might have inspired Arthur Conan Doyle in this story. But his older relative who died, apparently died of a heart attack, but there was a man who apparently witnessed footprints of a hound leaving the scene. And he came to Mr. Sholmes and said, I think he died because he was killed by a hound. Implied. There is some, language. But implied that he was killed by this hound. And so Herlock Sholmes was like, oh, that's interesting. So he sends Watson up there to keep an eye on things. And so Watson stays at this mansion with this young man for a while, and things are creepy and stuff. And then eventually the wolf shows itself, and Sherlock Holmes shoots it and dies. Or the hound, or whatever you want to call it. And so there really was a hound, and that's how it is. Something like that. The reason why that might be important is because this game, the Hound of the Baskervilles, kind of hangs over like the overhead of everything. That's a manuscript. The manuscript of the Hound of the Baskervilles, Sherlock Holmes doesn't want released into the wild. And at the end of the previous case, we found out that the person who previously occupied Soseki's room, the outlaw, he actually hid a collar, which might have been a collar for a hound that might have been killed because there's blood on the collar, in the ceiling of the room. And there was a big B emblem on it. And Sherlock Holmes was like, oh no, you can't publish the story of the case of the haunted lodgings. That, you can't, the story of, Shakespeare's attempted murder with the blowing in the pipe, and the attempted murder of him using poison on the pipe. So, and it's implied that it's some relationship to government secrets, even more specifically, the secret of the four names. So, but I don't really see any relationship there. So, maybe sometime or other I'll read through the whole Hound of the Baskervilles, maybe before I finish this game, so I get the whole background. If it will help me at all. It probably won't help me with this one, because this is like a completely different Sherlock Holmes story. Anyway, I gotta put some cookies in the oven, and then I'll actually start going through this. Okay. Runo, are you listening? Oh, sorry, what was that, Iris? What's the matter with you? You've been miles away all morning. Didn't you like what I cooked for breakfast? No, that's not it at all. What were we talking about again? Today's paper is full of news about the Great Exhibition again. Yes, the Great Exhibition. I'd like to go sometime. You're really not your usual self today. You seem very down. Don't you agree, Hurley? Did you say something, Iris? Oh gosh, you're even more down. He's 6 feet under. When did you arrive, Mr. Naruhodo? I've been here about half an hour already. We had breakfast together. What? Why didn't you mention it before? I thought you might have known I was here, because breakfast. Iris is quite right. You're clearly lacking in vim. So much so that I didn't notice your presence. Vim? Is that just a text? I only know that as a text editor. That's all I know that of. Of course, I could deduce the reason perfectly well with some simple observations. What? Let's see. Yes, for example, your tousled hair this morning with all its unruly spikes. It's always like that, Sholmes. Clearly it can be deduced, therefore, that... let me stop you there, Mr. Sholmes, because I think I see where this is going. My hair always looks like this. It always has, ever since we first met, in fact. Oh really? How interesting. It just doesn't look like a haircut as such, I suppose. Thanks again. It crossed my mind recently that it's been 6 months now. 6 months? Since I was forbidden from working in court. And by some machina, that's going to be lifted suddenly. So I've been wondering how much longer I'm going to be banned. Oh, well, that would explain why you seem rather glum. Don't you agree, Hurley? I didn't even know there was a time limit. Don't you get permabanned? Did you say something? Iris? Back to moping. What's the matter with Mr. Sholmes today? He seems even more down in the dumps than me. I know. And the great exhibition has opened. You'd think he'd be excited. Oh, why don't we all go see it together? I want to, of course I do, but I can't, not for the time being. Why not? Why not? Why not? Because I'm a great detective after all. So you're embroiled in some tricky case that you can't be distracted from, is that it? I don't remember hearing that you're working on a case, Hurley. He has to show up sneaky, like, he has to say he can't go, but end up there anyway. It's an act. I suppose I should try to find out what's going on. I gotta examine everything again, just in case. Every time I look at that machine, I can't help thinking, what a monstrosity it is. What's it called again? The Great Analytoscope. It can analyze absolutely anything, you know. It does seem incredible, and at the same time, incredibly useless. But it looks impressive, doesn't it? So that makes it very useful. How does that make it useful? Because it means you can pawn it for lots of money. But then you have to unpawn it, though. The pawnbrokers always make idle remarks like, what an incredible looking machine. Ha. So Hurley often takes it to the pawn shop when he's a little short. It sounds like this thing pulls its weight around here more than I realized by having its weight pulled around. Books, paper, scientific implements, these shelves are stuffed to the gunnels. Miss Susato wouldn't be able to help herself if she were here. She can't stand mess. Susie might not be able to stand mess, but she wouldn't dare touch these shelves. Oh, why not? And yes, I have read this exact dialogue before. Every new chapter the dialogue refreshes and I have to read all over again. You just have to put up with it. Everything's an intricate balance. Hurley spends ages on it. If you were to touch even one thing, the whole lot would come tumbling down. Ha. Susie noticed it was a very delicate arrangement right from the outset. To make it sound like a meeting of great minds. But the truth is, Mr. Sholmes just needs to tidy up. Ah yes, Mr. Sholmes' faithful music companion. Wasn't this violin made by somebody famous? Yes, it's a Stradivarius. I'm afraid you'd have to save up for 100 years before you could afford one, you know. If I were to save up for 100 years, I wouldn't choose to buy a violin personally. Oh, what would you buy then? A contrabassoon, of course. I really have no idea. I think I'll have to do it so I can find out. It's like me, a house. Anyway. House first, then contrabassoon. Ah yes, the huge metal chest with the lace cloth laid on it, being used as a table for tea and coffee. It's very sturdy, that's for sure, and firmly locked shut. The chest contains my father's detailed records of Hurley's many cases. Yes, so I've been led to believe, though personally I've never actually seen inside. And that's the way it will stay. Those papers are a secret between Daddy and me. And if you go opening it uninvited, you might find yourself being bitten. What, is there a beast inside there or something? I do love a good fire in the colder months. Watching the flames flickering and dancing about is just so very relaxing. Cleaning out the chimney isn't so relaxing though. No, getting covered in soot isn't my idea of fun. You know, Hurley decided he was going to clean it out himself last year. But you can guess what happened, can't you? He got himself stuck inside the flue. He's a very slim man, I admit, but there are limits to where a fully grown man can fit. Every time he dozes off by the fire, he has nightmares about it. Oh, all these different pieces of evidence from cases that Mr. Sholmes has solved are very interesting. The trouble is, Hurley forgets things so quickly. He never remembers why these things are relevant. The other day, for example, he saw the orange pipes that were there and decided to plant them in the garden. Pips? Yes, they've all sprouted now. We have 5 new little plants. Oh well, I don't know what case they were from, but if Mr. Sholmes can get oranges to grow outside in England, he should change his profession. Oh yes, this is where you note down ideas, isn't it, Iris? What's in the melting pot today? The blue carbuncle. Yes, it's from a case of theft that Hurley solved ages ago. The theft of a precious stone. A carbuncle is another name for a garnet, you see. Especially if it's cut with a rounded top. Oh really? And this garnet was blue, was it? Well, that's the thing. They're usually red. No blue garnets have ever been discovered. Oh. So who knows what the stolen gemstone actually was? That's the real mystery of the case. A proper Sherlock Sholmes conundrum, huh? I look forward to finding out what aroma your tea will have, Iris, every single day. Oh, well, I infuse a different concoction of herbs from the garden every time, so it's never the same twice. Okay. I gotta now take cookies out of the oven, then I'll come back and keep recording. When you call it a concoction, it sounds more like a science experiment than something for tea time. Oh yes, that's because different blends can have very different properties. Some calm you down, some make you feel jolly, some give you energy. Today's particular blend is something quite special, so you're really in for a treat. You say it every day, though. That sounds ominous. There are so many different bottles up there, on that charming little set of white shelves. Oh, do be careful, Runo. You mustn't try the contents of any of those bottles, even if you're hungry. I wouldn't do something stupid like that. I'm not a child, you know. Well, I wish I could say the same for Hurley. The other day, he polished off a full bottle of one of my alkaloids. He what? He said he was hungry. I'll be extra careful. I can type with my eyes shut, you know. So can I. I can believe it. When a deadline's approaching, you sound like a Gatling gun. That reminds me of a dream I had the other day. It was such a funny one. It woke me, actually. I was typing for a whole hour in the pitch black, but I didn't make a single mistake. That's incredible. But then, when it got light, I found that there wasn't any paper in the machine. Now I wonder if I'd actually been typing at all. I think you might just have fallen asleep on the job. Okay, that should be all the repeat dialogue. Always present this. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, about this. Shh, not another word. Ah, yes, I see. This would be a collar for a breed of miniature canine with a particularly long neck. And for winter use. Actually, it's the armband I always wear that symbolizes my role as a defense lawyer. Precisely, which leads us to but one conclusion. Your arm is, in fact, the particularly long neck of a miniature canine. I'm starting to wish I'd never shown him this now. The man's barking mad. although it is disappointing when the dialogue is exactly the same across chapters. Half a year ago now, I took on the defense of a young girl in a trial heard at the Old Bailey. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Gina Lestrade. So, in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's short stories, there was a police inspector called Inspector Lestrade. In fact, he shows up in The Hound of the Baskervilles, if I recall correctly. And he shows up more often than Inspector Gregson does. But when whoever wrote this game, they decided to leave Gregson as the inspector and reuse Lestrade's name for a pickpocket. Decisions. But it first seemed like a simple case of murder that took place at a London pawnbrokery, turned out to be one part of a much more far-reaching plot that involved the British government. During the course of the trial, it was found that I made an unavoidable, yet at the same time unforgivable mistake. Words fail me. The situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. In the end, I had my right to represent people in court revoked. I was told I had to spend my time in research and study, so that's what I've been doing. You have, haven't you, Bruno? Reading all those big fat tomes about British law up in your room, and the notes about Sholmes' old cases, except he can't because they're in a chest that you serve tea on. And I'm gonna predict this line before it shows me it. No, he hasn't been reading those tomes. Brewing Irish's special blends of tea, fetching my daily bread for me. You've become something of a manservant around here. Start on the silverware next, Master Naruhodo. Well, I'm thinking of going to ask the powers that be to reconsider, specifically Lord Strongheart at the British Supreme Court on Whitehall. Lord Strongheart? Ah, the delightful Lord Chief Justice. Not my favorite fellow. He's not mine either, but he's the man I have to talk to. He's the only one who can grant permission to me to start working on in the courts again. I came to Britain to become the best lawyer I could, and I can't do that just sitting around here. The whole of London has been swept up in the Great Exhibition, hasn't it? The most advanced science, the most modern technology, the finest works of art and feats of engineering. For the next 6 months, our capital will be showcasing these things and the world will be watching. Oh. Do you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to look down on London from one of those lovely balloons. Well, that's a new sprite. Look down on... Do you mean those things? Fly? Yes, of course. They fly high in the sky and don't even need wings to do it. All you need is hot air. But how? How does hot air have anything to do with flying? It makes no sense. I can't understand it at all. That's true of a lot of new scientific discoveries. Most people can't understand them at first. But in 100 years' time, all these things will just be common knowledge. I suppose they might be. Mind you, some of the science behind being demonstrated seems very questionable. Something went wrong on the open experimentation stage yesterday, apparently. There was a huge explosion. Still, I wish I'd seen it, though. I'd love to see how bad some of these scam experiments really are. Says the innocent 10-year-old girl. See here, every page of this paper carries some article or other about the Great Exhibition. But the brighter things shine, the darker the shadows that are cast behind them. Okay, I'm back. There's been a lot of cuts and pauses and awkwardness here. Hopefully that was the last one, but I did accidentally advance to the next line in that interim, so I forgot if I read the previous line or not. But the brighter things shine, the darker the shadow that are cast behind them. Personally, I find myself drawn to the darkness, to the impenetrable. That is my proper atmosphere. Okay. Shadows cast behind. Is that a metaphorical way of referring to the back page of the paper? So many glowing reports about the Great Exhibition and everything that's going on there. Other than this rather gloomy looking one, that is. Wait, what? What's the matter, Runo? The Reaper attacked? By the Phantom of the Opera? That's Lord Van Zykes. This must be what Mr. Scholes was talking about. Does he know any more, I wonder? Every article on the front page is news about the Great Exhibition. Public experiments to demonstrate brand new scientific ideas, cultural exhibits from around the globe. It's also positive and hopeful about the coming century. We must all go to see it properly before too long. It says in the paper that Lord Van Zykes was attacked. That's terrible. You know the legend of the Reaper of the Bailey, of course. Don't you? Only too well, in fact. Yes, Prosecutor Barak von Zykes. They say that if the Reaper is the prosecutor in a case, there's no salvation for whoever's in the dock. Even if the defendant is found not guilty. Once the Reaper has someone in his sights, one way or another, that person's time left on this earth will be short. London's finest rogues always find ways around the law. They'll stop at nothing to secure an acquittal at trial. Falsifying evidence, paying sham witnesses, threatening jurors, bribing judges. But even such devious tactics as these cannot save them from the hand of the Reaper. As you've experienced yourself, haven't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, I've seen the Reaper's retribution at work. Many of these criminal rogues are reckless and quite unafraid to die. Yeah, we haven't figured out the explanation for... Yeah, remembering the timeline. Well, actually, we have. No, this is 6 months after the whole incident with the pawnbroker, right? So, yeah, we do actually have an explanation for why that happened. Okay, why exactly McGilded died? Many of these criminal rogues are reckless and quite unafraid to die. If a leader among them for fraternity is seen to have been taken by the Reaper, retaliation like this does occur. Really, the capital has a never-ending supply of such scoundrels. So, do you mean Lord Van Zykes has been attacked like this before? This isn't the first time? He's quite an accomplished combatant, you know. He doesn't take these attacks lying down. Although, it seems that his assailants were armed with guns this time. Oh my goodness, is he alright then? Is Lord Van Zykes hurt? My dear fellow, how on earth would I know? You didn't read the paper, did you? Well, in the article here it says, as to what of Lord Van Zykes and his condition, all will be revealed in tomorrow morning's edition. Ah, I see. The journalist just simply doesn't know, and that's why he's saying that. Well, we shall have to be patient then. No, I can't wait until tomorrow. In that case, you shall have to inquire with somebody in the know. But who? Lord Strongheart, perhaps? Music stops. Are you investigating a particularly tricky case at the moment, Mr. Sholmes? You could say that, I suppose. Nothing more to add? That's not like you. What sort of case is it? Shh! Quiet, Mr. Naruhodo. We must not discuss it here. You never know who might be listening. You're acting very strangely, Miss Hurley. What do you mean, Iris? Well, usually, the more mysterious and complicated a case is, the better Hurley's mood. Ah. Is it really the case that's bothering you? Iris, please, you mustn't exercise your astute powers of observation and deduction on me without invitation. Remember what I always say. Put yourself in the shoes of the individual about whom you're making deductions. You say that, do you? You, Mr. Sholmes? Never mind. Once I've had a cup of tea, I must make my way at once to the crime scene. Ha. That was a deep sigh. Well, I must be leaving now. Yes, understood. See you later, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, you really are a shameless liar sometimes, my dear fellow. What? You seek to put me off my guard and follow me, don't you? Well, you will be wasting your time. The thought hadn't crossed my mind, but now I'm wondering where you're going. Well then, see you later indeed. Listen to him. He's still laughing on his way out the door. Alright then, Bruno, let's get going. Oh, Iris? What are you wearing? I've got changed to go to the Great Exhibition. You're going to take me. But I was just about to go to the Supreme Court. Oh, well that sounds fun too. You're going to take me there then. Alright, fine. Just lower that weapon, would you? Of course, and after the Supreme Court, then we'll go to the Great Exhibition. Well, it's gonna end up that way. Never go in order. So excited about the prospect of Naruhodo's anything consultancy opening for business again. That's not what it's called. It's Naruhodo's legal consultancy. That was a reference to Apollo Justice. I've done a lot of studying in these past 6 months, reading law texts and judicial precedents. I'm sure I'm a better lawyer now. I can't wait to start practicing again. Nothing's changed in here at all, though, has it? It's as though time has stood still in here since Susie went back to Japan. I wanted to keep it ready for Miss Susato, in case she was able to return to Britain at any point. So I just left everything the way it was. Oh, I see, right. And there was me thinking it's because of the way you are, Bruno. You know, never bothering to tidy up, I mean. Iris, this isn't the time or the place to bring up my tidiness, or lack of it. Must examine shovel. Oh. I missed. The office spade. Now that Mr. Sato's gone, the shovelers aren't represented to correct me. Maybe I'll have to do it myself. It's not a spade, Mr. Naruhodo, it's a shovel. Ah, so you're a spader, are you, Runo? What do you want, to battle it out? Alright, I'm not going to argue with a native English speaker who has some kind of gun. Susato's tea set that she left here with me. I still think green tea is just too bitter, though. Thank goodness for sugar and milk. Mr. Sholmes certainly wasn't expecting the acrid taste that one time. I'll never heard someone let out a scream like that before, or seen anyone fall down the stairs quite like that either. It always brings a smile to my lips when I'm feeling a little down. Oh well, do you know what that reminds me of? The day I gave you some black coffee when you weren't expecting it. You fell all the way down the stairs as well, didn't you, Runo? Yes. Do you think we could try to forget that, please, Iris? That doesn't bring a smile to my lips at all. Still gently simmering away there on top of the stove, as usual. It was kind of Miss Susato to send that Japanese tea. You really like it, don't you, Iris? But for me, it's the sound of the stove and bubbling kettle I like the most, on biting winter mornings. And it feels even cozier in here when the delightful Iris pours the tea for me. I really couldn't manage without that wonderful young girl. Oh, Runo, it's so sweet of you to say so. Stop putting words in my mouth, please, Iris. She kinda hit on you. Anyway. But she's 10, remember? Now, at first glance, my desk here might look as though it's a mess. However, it's not in a mess at all. Everything is exactly where I want it to be. But whenever Miss Susato looked at it, she'd put her hands on her hips and say, "Oh dear." Her way of saying that I should make it more orderly a neat mess. I miss that. You sound just like Hurley, you know. He says the same about his mess. It's the kind of logic that transcends international borders, obviously. It's Miss Susato's desk. I suppose it won't get used now that she's gone back to Japan. I'll just have to wait here patiently for its old friend to return. Even now, I sometimes find myself pouring a cup of tea for Susie by mistake. That explains why sometimes I find a steaming cup on her desk here. It shocks me every time. Well, it's just one of your pranks, I see. It's no prank, I miss her. The prawns and anemones gently swaying around in the tank. Regular cleaning, some food and fresh seawater is all they need, and some conservation, of course. It seemed like a lot of effort at first, but it was worth it. I'm starting to be able to tell what they're thinking. Funny to think that so many people in London had aquariums like this once, when they were in vogue. You would never expect to find sea anemones in the middle of the capital. I think I'll have to name them soon. Oh no, Runo disappeared. What? I expected he'd be eaten by Hurley. I think I'd prefer it if you used your imagination more than naming the sea life. I never did see what Miss Susato's room looks like. I could go in now, of course, but I don't dare. They say a young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets. Although from the laughter I used to hear when you would visit, I imagine it's mainly sweet. Oh, we used to have such fun in Susie's room. She told me all sorts of interesting things about your country, you know. Okay. Let's go meet this potential final boss. It's been about 6 months now since I was last here. But some things never change, like the sense of foreboding I always seem to feel in this place. Seem to be bothering Iris at all, though. She's happily reading over there. Love this place. I always find so many interesting books here. Of course, I was forgetting that you've been here before. The time we came here 6 months ago. When Susato-san was given the news that she was to return to Japan. I understand you wish to speak with me. Strongheart, I trust you've been keeping well. As in keeping time well. Let's see, since you arrived and requested an audience, it's been 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 26 seconds. I've kept you waiting a while, my apologies. Holy smokes. Oh, not at all, I think nothing more than standing around staring into space. Good to know. Good to know that doesn't appear to bother him at all. Introduce this guy. Male Strongheart. Lord Chief Justice of London. Named this way, he was destined to be this person by the name he was given. He's the man who allowed me to start practicing as a defense lawyer when I arrived in Britain as a student. You need only savor the air for a moment in this grand office to understand his preeminent status. As you will be aware, the Great Exhibition of London is now underway at last. We're extremely busy as a result, policing the grounds, guarding the new technologies, dealing with petty crime. And furthermore, as of next month, we shall open the International Forensic Science Symposium. I've not heard about that. Investigating authorities from the 40 countries around the globe will be taking part, including from your own land. Forensic science is the future. The world must embrace it. And we are the hosting nation. I have much to do. It is my highest priority. If others must wait for my attention as a result, so be it. Well, it's nice to know where I stand. So, you wish to consult with me? Of course, I can very well imagine what this is about. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, my lord. I want to be allowed to start working as a defense lawyer again in court. That's what brought me here today. And actually, there's something else playing on my mind as it happens. Bruno, just take a deep breath and come out with it. Oh, I've just had a great idea. What is it? We could hide inside these suits of armor and spy on the fob watchmaster to find out what he's really like. I don't have much interest in what Lord Strongheart is really like, though. Oh, please, it would be fun. You could be inside the left one and I'll go in the right. You really want to have to go in a suit of armor, don't you? Now you're making fun of me because I'm a child, aren't you? I wasn't making fun of you at all. It's like to have to go, too. I like to... Oh, okay. You couldn't read all these books even if you were reincarnated 3 times over. As a bookworm. Oh, I know. So much reading material. I'm very envious. I've really been running out of things to read recently. That's because you read so fast. Perhaps little by little I could swap some of the books here with some of mine from home. I don't see why not. No one would notice, or at least I wouldn't, even if I was reincarnated 3 times over as a librarian. Cogs, the giant clock, are keeping time as usual with their steady rhythmical motion. It's really quite disturbing how little sound they make considering their massive size. Someone very brilliant must have designed it, and whoever maintains it must be very talented too. But I'm not entirely convinced it's even a clock. By the time 2022 comes around, it will all be a rusted pile of junk. What? But what about the huge clock face that forms the window over there? Some people just make machines that move for the fun of it, because they enjoy watching them. Rather like how Hurley makes his rambling deductions just for the fun of it. Even if the outcome isn't quite right. Never mind all the trouble it gets others into along the way. Lord Chief Justice's desk. When you look at that, there's no mistaking Lord Strongheart's authority, is there? The light from that window behind is far too bright. It would be very bad for the eyes. I hadn't thought of that. There are no curtains, that's for sure. What's more important, having a desk with an air of authority or having eyes that work. I can't say I even considered it. After all, my little office barely has any light to speak of, and I haven't really seen my desk in a while. Okay. Not being too thorough there, I might have gotten it all, I might not have. I came here today to ask for your permission. Go on. 6 months ago, my right to work in court as a lawyer was revoked, and I was told to spend my time studying. Obviously, I'm very sorry for what happened, but the thing is, it made me understand what it really means to defend somebody under the rules of a foreign justice system. I desperately want to have another go. Please permit me to enter the courtroom again. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Here it comes. I'm sure you haven't forgotten your position here, have you? At best, you are a substitute for your compatriot. This was never your intended role. Well, that's true. And it's an interesting angle to come at from. The Japanese government actually sent my best friend on the study tour, not me. It should have been Kazuma. He was so determined to bring change to our justice system at home. That was his calling. He was trying to do something else, actually, that we haven't figured out yet. If that tragic accident hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here in this office now. Mr. Asogio is my best friend, you see. That's why I want to leave it That's why I can't leave it unfinished. I have to fulfill his calling for him. His calling, you say? Has it never occurred to you that perhaps you know nothing of his true calling? Sorry? The mission with which that young law student was charged. What do you suppose it really was? Strongheart knows? What do you mean, mission? He's not making any sense. Oh, you knew there was something you didn't know, Naruhodo. Why did you forget about that now? Never mind. I've read all the reports you submitted over the past 6 months. You submitted reports? Oh dear. It's clear to me that you regret your actions and have been studiously obeying your revised instructions. Do you mean... As of this moment, I reinstate your license to practice law here in Great Britain. Thank you so much. It's wonderful news, Runo. In fact, I believe I have the perfect case to mark your comeback. A curious affair. You'll consider it, I hope? Of course, please tell me more. Is that the title of the chapter? You describe it as a curious affair. Yes, that's right. I believe it was reported in the press. Are you aware that there was a serious accident at the Great Exhibition yesterday? No. Yes, I read about it. A professor from Germany tried to carry out a crazy experiment. Let me see, how was it described? Super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, I think? Instantaneous kinesis, as in moving things without a click with the click of the fingers? That's right. It's just what my herbal blend need. Blends a dash of devil may care. Whatever this serious accident was exactly, it's clearly captured Iris' imagination. It's an unfortunate business. A large explosion engulfed the public experimentation stage and a man lost his life. A certain Mr. Odi Osman. Odi Esman? I don't get the pun, but okay, maybe it's German. Odious man? Oh, okay. An investigator and a well-known figure in society. A large explosion? man died. The man responsible for the experiment was Professor Albert Harebrain. He was detained immediately after the incident and is due to appear in court tomorrow on the charge of murder. Murder? If you intend to take on his defense, you should hurry to meet him at the prison. Well, to me, this sounds like a really stupid case to take on, actually, but there are no stupid cases to take on an Ace Attorney. Somehow the plot is written so that you win in the end, despite how stupid it is. I mean, he obviously didn't. It's either, yeah, he either committed, probably didn't commit a murder, probably he was just an idiot. Which, in the United States and most states today, I think would get you charged with involuntary manslaughter. But whatever. There's very little time left for you to carry out any kind of investigation. The great exhibition. The scientific experiment gone wrong. And murder. I feel out of my depth before I've even started. Oh, I got hiccuping again. You should go to the prison straight away then, and try to meet with this German professor, don't you think? Definitely. Yes, one more thing about the case. There is a connection with our mutual acquaintance, the Reaper. Oh, with Lord Van Zykes, how? All sorts of conferences have been taking place around the world to coincide with the Great Exhibition. And next month, the largest and most important of them will take place at last. The International Forensic Science Symposium. Does seem as though a criminal investigation needs to embrace scientific methods, doesn't it? Exactly! London, the global epicenter of culture, science, and wealth, now has a population exceeding 6 million. Sadly, crime in the capital is growing at a similarly startling rate. It is imperative that we use the latest scientific methods to investigate and resolve cases as efficiently as possible. Which is what is known as forensic science, isn't it? Exactly! The future of policing. Incredibly, however, Britain is currently dragging its feet when it comes to the adaptation of forensic methods. Oh dear, that's alarming. Exactly! It's extremely alarming. If I were Her Majesty's Attorney General, you can be sure the numbers of crimes committed and resolved in London would be very different to the current figures. Oh, we're getting to the political ambition here. And I can cite 12 solid arguments and 223 individual reasons to support my claim. Sorry. By way of apology for keeping you waiting earlier, I shall detail everyone now. What? Oh, how fascinating. It has begun 15 years ago. I was too lazy to write this as the author. Four hours later. And that more or less sums up my feelings on the matter, in the simplest of terms, of course. Essentially, to formally establish a forensic investigation division within Scotland Yard. That is my mission. Oh, right, yes, that's wonderful. Exactly. Wonderful is precisely what it will be. Iris isn't paying attention at all. She's got her nose in another book now. Oh, is it over? Did you learn anything useful? I actually drifted off, for the most part. He's surprisingly ardent about forensic science. Okay. Oh, 4 more minutes. Warden said cell 11. That's this one. Oh, there's someone curled up in a ball in the back corner, look. What's his name again? Professor Albert Hairbrain, wasn't it? Oh, excuse me, Professor Hairbrain. Who are you? I'm Rhinosuke Naruhodo. I'm a defense lawyer. A lawyer? Ah. Was it something I said? Yes, you said a lawyer. A lawyer, you say. Would you be here about the experiment? Are you going to defend my hypothesis? Your hypothesis? Sorry, I don't. Yesterday's demonstration. That magnificent demonstration was... It was an out-and-out success, by anyone's calculations. But despite that, no one listens. No lawyer believes in the science. When it's explained, they all leave at high velocity. Ah. Now it's probably not a good time to mention that your zeal may make concentration leave for a while too. Oh, fascinating, yes. In Japan, where I come from, it's the symbol of a defense lawyer. Wearing it is very bracing, I find. Your words make some sense to me, but they are entirely illogical. What do you mean? Well, for example, I find this white laboratory coat that I wear for my work very bracing too. However, in my case, there's a perfectly logical reason for that feeling. Oh, really? What is it? I purchased the wrong size by mistake. This one is too small for me. The sleeves especially are extremely bracing. I can barely move my wrists. That's what you call logical, is it? Of course, it's entirely logical. That's science, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, how could this have happened? You must feel awful. As well as a man losing his life, the Crystal Tower was greatly damaged too. I know what happened. It must have been that. That? The day before the demonstration, I had my usual meal at Frankfurter's, the hotel restaurant of Frankfurter's, at the hotel restaurant. When I paid the bill, they gave me 3 shillings too much in change. But instead of saying anything, I just slipped the coins into my pocket. They're still there now. It's divine retribution for my wrongdoing. That's what this is. For a scientist, he has some very illogical anecdotes. Long and illogical. Mentioned the demonstration yesterday. The papers have called it a spectacular failure. After all, a man died in the explosion, didn't he? Yes, you could interpret the results that way if you really wanted to. Well, I suppose in the strictest sense, the experiment was a failure. At the same time, it was a great success. You've lost me. I saw it with my own eyes, right there in front of me. Mr. Asman was spontaneously disassembled. Yeah, but it wasn't reassembled. Until then, everything was going exactly as my calculations had predicted. At that point, he should have been beamed to the Crystal Tower by instantaneous kinesis. However, the machine exploded and Mr. Isman, in fact, perished. Yes, I can't deny that part of the experiment was a failure. So what you're really saying is, the large explosion that killed Mr. Asman was an accident, correct? But the bigwigs had you arrested on suspicion of murder. Why would you murder somebody so that brazenly in front of everybody? I was responsible for the man's death. That is an immutable truth here. And for that I wish to be punished at once. But murder, never in a million years. It was an accident, simply an accident. I see. Hurley and I were talking this morning, you know. He said the situation would change completely depending on whether it was treated as an accident or murder. How exactly? Well, if it really was an accident, then the professor's machine would be kept in protective custody. On what grounds? Oh yes, it's newly established here in Britain. The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. The one passed me by. But if the case is treated as murder, then they'll say my machine was the murder weapon, and they'll be able to pore over it as much as they like. If they examine it in detail, they'll find out how it's made, and then they'll be able to copy my idea. My precious hypothesis will be stolen. The machine must be protected from that at all costs. That's why it's imperative this whole incident is shown to been an accident in tomorrow's trial. And not that you won't be executed. But whatever. Ah, I see now. So in short, there was a terrible accident at the Great Exhibition Showground yesterday. Yes, or rather no. The devil is in the details. Strictly speaking, there was a terrible explosion. Sounds the same to me. You were demonstrating super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, weren't you? How fascinating. How stupid. Humans, like all matter, are made up of particles that are held together by electrical bonds. Technically correct. So it must be possible, using a sufficiently high voltage, to break those bonds and beam the particles through space. Technically correct. That's it in a nutshell. That's my idea, you see. It's my amazing hypothesis. The problem is when you reassemble the... Yes, you can plasmalize it. But then you can't... The problem is reassembling it into a human being and having it start up again from a point other than it being a zygote. Like, that doesn't work. You can arrange all the atoms together in the exact arrangement that would form a human being while it was living, like in that instantaneous state. It wouldn't necessarily propagate forward into a living being from that state, right? Introduces a bunch of Laplace's demon stuff, or whatever. Something has to get the systems going. The brain has to start the heart, but the brain can't start if the heart doesn't start first. Like, everything's all interdependent. Anyway. Gosh, that's unimaginably high-level science. But dare to imagine it. Dare to dream of such incredible technology. Just think, one moment I could be here in this cell, and the next I could be in the Great Exhibition again. Well, yes, that would be incredible. And how are you supposed to get that big machine around that cell? And all the metal in your environment, what would that do? And next, in the mere blink of an eye, I could be at a great Parisian theater, say. The possibilities are endless. The whole of our vast planet would be within reach. So no more hiding in wardrobes on rocky seas for 50 days? I don't really see it like that. What do you mean, Iris? Well, if you could travel anywhere in the world instantly, the planet wouldn't really seem vast anymore, would it? I think it would feel like it had shrunk. My word, that's exactly right. What are the implications? What does this mean? Oops, that got Professor Bunny Brain really worried by the look of it. Clearly this is yet another case of just because you can doesn't mean you should, I suppose. The point is my calculations are flawless. The science works. But without a practical demonstration it means nothing. And that's always the fly in the ointment. Because practical demonstrations cost a lot of money. Money that young scientists like you don't have. That's exactly it, yes. Hurley's always complaining about it. He says the government should invest more in science. Well, anyway, I bumped into him at the right time. I met the well-known investor, Mr. Esmond. The victim who died in yesterday's terrible accident, you mean? The full name of the man who died in yesterday's accident was Mr. Odious Man, wasn't it? What exactly was your relationship with the man? He first visited me in my laboratory in Germany a year ago now. He said he wanted to invest in my immaculate hypothesis. I thanked my lucky stars. I see, so you haven't really known each other until then. Money for scientific research. I'm so envious. As far as I was concerned, the man was an angel. Oh, really? An archangel, even. He was prepared to fund a practical demonstration of my hypothesis for presentation at the Great Exhibition. And if that went well, I could expect additional financial support for my research from the British government. Mr. Isman provided me with money and an exceptional engineer. He produced a machine on my precise specifications. But then your dreams were blown to dust in one enormous explosion. As you can see, I owed everything to Mr. Isman. I would never, ever have thought of taking the man's life. Well, he seems genuine enough. I don't think he's lying. I had to present the newspaper article a second time. I have to examine it again, okay. The Reaper attacked. It's the kingpins of the criminal underworld generally managing to escape the conviction in the Reaper's trials. This isn't the first time their henchmen have tried to attack Lord Van Zykes, as a result by the sound of it. It makes you think, if that's how the justice system works in London, then there must be dark forces at work. Well, I'll stop this here and figure out how to progress later, because I missed something in some place. In some investigation of something. How do I save? I do this. Then I hit save. Cool.